How much longer will it take?
We're going to bury my mother's body and offer flowers, so it might take a few more hours.
What? I can't get to my bed on time. Bury her quickly. What a pain in the ass.
I'll be in the waiting room taking care of the incense, so I don't have to go, do I? It's too much trouble to move from one place to another.
Then I won't go either. The game is about to start.
My name is Sarah, and I'm 26 years old. I just got married last spring, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. My father, who owned a company, died early. I'm a secretary to my mother, who succeeded him as president of the company. My husband Mitchell is 2 years younger than me and 24 years old. He's a motorcycle delivery service provider by trade. We met in our company's office building. I was in the elevator when the door was about to close, and Mitchell came running in it. It was his first day on the job, so he said,
I can't figure out which way to go.
He was running around the building, sweating because he couldn't find the department he needed. It was a bike delivery that had to be completed in time. I led the health-conscious Mitchell by the hand to his destination. After that, I often saw Mitchell, who seemed to have been assigned to this area. One day, on the way home from work, I stopped by a ramen shop with my colleagues and heard a familiar voice from behind me.
So, you go to this kind of store?
I turned around to see a friendly-looking Mitchell sitting at the counter eating his ramen with his phone in hand. I said hello and said of course I would come. Saying this, I took a seat with my colleagues and placed our order.
I'll take you to a good ramen restaurant next time,
he said to me as I was leaving. After that, he would wait for me in front of the office when I was leaving. We began to eat ramen together again and again. At first, it was just casual conversation, but as we got to know each other better, we began to talk about all sorts of things, including our ages and our personal lives. Perhaps it was because we both grew up in a single-parent households. We became even more intimate with each other, and before we knew it, we were married. It was on our way home from a ramen noodle shop as usual. See you tomorrow. As we were walking to the station, Mitchell suddenly says to me,
I want to introduce you to my mom.
And he invited me to his home. It was already 9 p.m. on the clock after having had dinner at a ramen restaurant. It was late. It's rude at this hour, so shouldn't I go another day? I don't even have a gift for her. I said,
It's okay. My mom wants to see you. She said I can take you anytime. And our house is close. It's a bit shabby though. So, please come.
Mitchell was very matter-of-fact about it. No, even if you say that, you'll be insane at this hour of the night. Mitchell didn't hear my hesitant reply. He rode his bike and pointed in the direction we were walking. We turned off the main street where the ramen shop was and entered a narrow street. I saw the house with the barn, which is very rare nowadays.
This is our house. Pretty shabby, huh?
Mitchell chuckled as he parked his bike in the grassy yard, opened the poorly made sliding door, and beckoned me to come in. Is it really okay to come at this late hour? I entered the front door with trepidation.
Don't worry, we live in this kind of place. There's no need to be formal.
A woman, Mitchell's mother, came out from the back after hearing our conversation. I greeted her with a reserved hello and said, I'm sorry it's so late. She greeted me with a hesitation and welcomed me as if she had been waiting for me. Mitchell, I'm so glad you finally brought her here. Sarah, is it? Please, come on in. My first impression of Mitchell's mother was that she was loud and talkative. She seemed to have a bit of quirky personality. As soon as I entered the room, Mitchell's mother persistently asked me about my family home. She smiled meaningfully and dug deep. How much are your family's total assets? Will you be able to take over the company in the future? How much is your income now? I was getting tired of being asked so many questions about money. I looked at Mitchell to see if he can help me. He was absorbed in a game with his phone in his hand. He didn't seem to be listening to our conversation at all. I was afraid that she would keep on asking me questions until the world was over. I'm sorry, I have to work early tomorrow. And I left the conversation. If I were to marry Mitchell, would I be able to call her my mother? I was a little worried. His mother, who seemed to be oblivious to my worries, even come to my mother's house to say hello. Even though Mitchell had not yet formally proposed to me, she was trying to get me to be a part of her family, and she was making moves for us to get married. Mitchell's mother's momentum led to our marriage. I was prepared to live with my in-laws with the way my mother-in-law was acting. Surprisingly, we were not forced to live together. We started our new life in a newly built rental apartment. Well, I guess we couldn't even bring in our new furniture in that old house. My mother was also concerned about me moving in with my mother-in-law after the marriage. She was relieved that we got off to an uneventful start. It was when my marital leave ended and I was returned to work tomorrow. While I was on leave, my mother was working without a substitute secretary. I taught her to be careful when driving, but accidents happen even when we are careful. A phone call from the police reminded me of this. The feeling of coldness all over my body and the voices that sounded like echoes. I took Mitchell, who was playing the smartphone game by my side. We went to the place where the police told us to go. My mother, who was lying in a dark room at the destination, could not answer me anymore. Unable to accept what was in front of me, I was stood there in a daze. I could neither cry nor scream. Beside her, Mitchell was absorbed in the game without changing a single expression on his face. I could resentfully hear the sound of the game echoing in the silence. Time passed at a hectic pace. The wake was over without any real sense of sadness. The day of the funeral arrived. The funeral for my mother, who was the president of the company, was to be held in the form of a company funeral. The employees willingly divided up the work that needed to be done. They took care of the details and the mourners. I think I got a glimpse of my mother's personality before her death. I should be the good mourner and do my best to live up to my mother's memory. While I was immersed in such thoughts, I noticed that the reception area for mourners was strangely noisy. There shouldn't be any accident at the place where the ceremony was originally held in solemnity. When I turned around to see what was going on, I found an unbelievable scene. To my surprise, employees were helping out. My mother-in-law was in charge of the reception for the mourners. She was looking at the money in the envelope and writing the amount of money under her name. I didn't realize the mourning gift was less than the wedding gift. I thought there would be more because it was the president's funeral. The employees at the reception desk and those who came to offer condolences were taken aback by this behavior. Some of them are even wondering if they should offer the condolences anymore. How could she embarrass us like this? I ran over to her. How dare you do this? Please stop it right now. I shouted out loud. My mother-in-law didn't seem offended. Sarah, what are you yelling at me for? I went to the trouble of helping you. Isn't that kind of attitude rude? She got mad at me. If I spoke back here, the fuss was bound to get louder because it's something she would do. I swallowed what I wanted to say and only asked her to leave the reception area without further argument. In the meantime, It was time for the prayer to start, and I hurried to take a seat. However, Mitchell was nowhere to be found. One after another, relatives and friends were taking their seats. I was looking for Mitchell, but I found him playing a smartphone game in the corner of the hall. I thought that my mother-in-law and Mitchell were insane, but I had no idea that they had no common sense. I took the phone out of his hand and said, "Hey Mitchell, that's enough." I forced him to stop playing.
Why'd you do that? Give me my phone back.
I silently put the phone in Mitchell's pocket, and I made him take his seat. I made it to the prayer just in time. I took a deep breath and put out the rosary beads I had in my pocket. Mitchell reached into his pocket too. I thought he was going to take out his rosary beads, but what came out was his smartphone. He started to play the game again. During the prayer was being said, I couldn't yell at my husband in front of so many people. I tried to warn him in a whisper, but Mitchell, who was engulfed in the game, could not hear me. During the prayer, Mitchell's phone was the center of attention, which was extremely embarrassing. When it was his time to receive communion, I gave him a God elbow thrust. There, Mitchell blundered again. After the communion, instead of singing, he began to frantically clap his hands. He returned to his seat with an indifferent look on his face. He seemed to be very serious and did not even know how to behave. When most of the attendees had sat down, Mitchell returned to his seat, this time yawning. Then he asked me,
"How much longer is this gonna take?"
Apparently, he was getting tired of attending this service itself. "I guess it will still be a few hours before we can start the burial with flowers for my mother." Mitchell looked very disgruntled when I answered that.
"I can't get to my bed on time. Bury her quickly. What a pain in the ass."
He said something that sounded insane. Then, even my mother-in-law came over. "I'll be in the waiting room taking care of the incense, so I don't have to go, do I? There will be food after the funeral, right? It's too much trouble to move from one place to another." It was a terrible thing to say. Even Mitchell took the bait and said,
"Then I won't go either. The game is about to start."
That's what he said. I didn't know they were this crazy. Isn't it awful against the deceased? Just a few days ago, they became my relatives by marriage. I was so mad that I almost blacked out. Even so, my mother-in-law said, "A funeral right after getting married would be the bad omen. It's going to cost a lot of money to pay for the funeral ceremony. Isn't it a nuisance?" She says this like it's obvious. Are you serious about that? The relatives around us looked at us with a doubtful expression on their faces. Then, the person in charge of the ceremony told us that the flowers had been put away and it was time to have the burial. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I would start cursing the two of them. So I hurried and went to my mother's side. After the funeral, I didn't feel like going back to the new house with Mitchell. I went back to my parents' house because I had to sort out my mother's belongings for a while. The house was quiet after my mother left. When I thought that I would never see her again, I finally realized she had passed away. I put out my old photo albums and soaked in the memories of spending time with my mother. When I woke up the next day, I decided to organize what I could of mementos for my relatives and those who were close to my mother. It probably shouldn't have been done so quickly, but I couldn't stay away from doing something. I couldn't deal with the sudden loss of my mother, much less the fact that my spouse and mother-in-law didn't support me. The shock of my spouse and mother-in-law being such people was too much. I was looking at my mother's belongings one by one. Then the intercom rang. It was Mitchell and my mother-in-law on the monitor. I wondered if they had come to apologize. I opened the front door, and the two of them came into the room as if it was a matter of course. And my mother-in-law put on the beaming face. I came to help. You're gathering her valuables, right? Without a single word of apology, they suddenly walked through the house, opening closet doors and sideboard drawers. What are you doing? Coming here out of the blue. I yelled at them again for their insane behavior. What do you mean? We have to keep what we can use, otherwise it will be a waste if we get rid of everything. If we don't hurry up, the buyers will come. If we exchange them for cash, we'll split the inheritance among the family. They rummaged through my mother's luxury clothes and bags. My mother-in-law is excited as if she were putting on a fashion show. What? What buyers? Oh, please, you were going to throw away something you didn't want for free? Even it's $2 or $3. If you don't turn it into money, you lose it. You were busy with the inheritance procedures, so I made arrangements for you. My mother-in-law looked at me as if she loved me. I didn't ask you to do that. Don't touch her things. How much more insane do you have to be? Please, leave. Then my mother-in-law brazenly said, I'm going to leave here from today, so there's no need for me to leave, is there? You're going to get this house and all its contents anyway. What? I was surprised, but my mother-in-law looked at me blankly and said, You don't understand why I didn't move in with you and Mitchell? Because I didn't want to have to move so many times. I was going to move in with you if you build your own house eventually. I thought that with the money that you make, you would be able to get it up and run in no time. Thanks to your mother, we got the house ahead of schedule. I should be thanking her. How can she live so selfishly? Then Mitchell, playing his game, added, So, that's that. I married you because you seem to make a good salary and your family is rich. He said that plainly. Does that mean you're after my fortune? I asked him. Yeah, when I'm rich, I can spend all the money on games. That's what my mom told me. So she said I should definitely get married. She said that she wants to be able to spend as much as she wants to. I was surprised at his answer, which made me question his mental age. Does that mean that as long as I had money, you would have been happy to marry anyone? I guess so. Huh? I can't believe you would say that. I feel deeply ashamed that I married such a guy. Are you two making fun of me? Cut it off! Get out of here! I was sick of seeing their faces and urged them to leave immediately. Then pay us alimony. I was appalled at how attached she is to money. I would not give a single penny of my mother's wealth to such a person. I'm not kidding. I split the wedding funds 50-50, so I want it to be a super luxury hotel. Is what my mother-in-law said, but she still hasn't paid her share for the wedding. My mother-in-law said that she wanted to have a full-course meal at a super luxury hotel. She insisted that the wedding be held at this hotel. When I pointed out to my mother-in-law, who doesn't even try to pay back her debt, but only thinks about receiving gifts, that it's not going to happen, she said, Why would I pay back when the person to pay is gone now? If you insist on me paying it back, why don't you just set it off against the alimony? If we divide the property, there will still be enough to pay the alimony, she said. I decided to call the police for loitering. When the police arrived, instead of panicking, my mother-in-law told them she was just helping sort out the belongings. While they were arguing, the buyer arrived, and the police interviewed the buyers as well. After confirming that the client was the mother-in-law, the police questioned me, and I told them my mother-in-law sold the belongings without permission. They took my mother-in-law and Mitchell out of my family home. After that, the interview was over. After the interview, my mother-in-law and Mitchell returned to my house without hesitation. "I'll call the police again," I said over the intercom. "I'll never do anything selfish again," they said, and apologized and begged me to let them live here. My mother-in-law and Mitchell ended the lease at their old home, so they had no place to return to. And they even got rid of their clothes and furniture. They told me all they owned was the clothes on their backs. What kind of greedy and brazen mother and son are they? Of course, I had no intention of doing them any favors. The two of them were literally penniless. They had nowhere to go, so they stayed under the eaves of my house for a while. I wonder how long it had been since I saw them being questioned by the police officers patrolling the area. After that day, I never saw them again. I am now remarried to the kind, caring, sensible man who has taken over my mother's business and home. He sees me for who I am, not my background. He is very bright and very dependable in running his company. I have been through some terrible experiences, but I am determined to be as happy as I can be. Of course, I will do this with my husband, who is very kind to me. I hope that one day, when I see my mother again, I will be able to tell her that I have lived a very happy life.
Hey, where is all your stuff? And what are you thinking? Leaving me with these divorce papers?
Because after the graduation ceremony is over, my daughter and I are graduating from you.
What? Why? Why so sudden?
Sudden? How can you say it's so sudden when you didn't even try to take care of our daughter? Or were you so caught up in your affair that you didn't even notice it?
What?
My name is Claire. I am a 37-year-old housewife. My husband, Nathan, and I have been married for 10 years. My husband and I met through work. He was part of business client's company, and the one who managed the exchanges between my company and his. My husband was 5 years older than me and was mature. I had always liked older men, so I may have made some modifications in my brain. Then, one day, he asked me out to dinner. After that, we started to go out on dates. I was thinking that maybe we could continue to date and get married. When we officially started dating, he told me that he had a child, a 4-year-old girl named Caitlin. He had left his wife because she was having an affair. I was honestly surprised. But I was glad that my husband told me the truth at an early stage. It actually gave me a good impression of him. So, we officially started to date. And I met Caitlin for the first time. I thought she would be wary of meeting a woman she didn't know. But Caitlin was very friendly and talked to me a lot. I thought that I could get along well with her. With this thought, I once again began to think that I could actually marry him. 1 year after we started dating, my husband proposed and I said yes. After our marriage, he asked me to quit my job and become a housewife.
Until now, I've left Caitlin at home with my parents. But I can't depend on them all the time, can I? Besides, you would want Caitlin to think of you as her mother too, right?
That was true. No matter how good of a girl Caitlin is, if we leave her with his parents every day, it would take time for her to recognize me as her mother. Puberty will come before she recognizes me as her mother, and she might distance herself from me. Besides, my in-laws are getting older. It would be quite a burden to take care of a young child. I thought deeply about it and decided to follow my husband's advice and became a housewife. Since then, I have been spending more and more time with Caitlin. Caitlin, what shall we do today? Let's draw. Great, then I'll bring crayons. Wow, You're really good. Is this a flower? Yes, I love flowers. Okay, Caitlin. It's snack time. Yay, snack! Caitlin was a very nice girl and opened up to me right away. Thanks to being a housewife and spending time together during the day, she started to call me Mom very early on. When she called me her mother for the first time, I almost cried. It was the first time I felt motherhood. The more time I spent with Caitlin, the more I loved her. I realized that blood relations had nothing to do with love. I loved Caitlin as if she were my own daughter and gave her my full attention. Time passed so quickly. And Caitlin is turning 14 years old this year. She was 4 years old when we met. So it has been 10 years already. Caitlin is already in 8th grade. I'm sure she will grow up in the blink of an eye. She will soon become a high school student, then probably a college student. And then she'll start working and maybe get married. If you think about it, there is a possibility that she'll have experienced all of these in less than 10 years. Caitlin is currently preparing for her high school entrance exams, so she often goes to cram school. After her extracurricular activities, she usually comes home at 8 p.m. or so. I think it's really great that she studied so hard. Welcome home. Dinner's ready. I'm home. Is Dad home yet?
He's gonna be working late today. So, let's eat first.
Okay.
She seems a little down. Caitlin, what's wrong? What? I was just wondering if there was something wrong. It's nothing.
Oh, I'm so hungry. What's for dinner tonight?
It's chicken pot pie.
Yes, my favorite.
Caitlin seems to be covering up her thoughts with her smile. I've been by her side for 10 years, so I kind of know when something is wrong. Did something happen to her at school? I'm worried, but I don't want to force her to talk. I'll wait for her to talk to me when the time is right. But then, about a month later, something unexpected happened. I had to go to my parents' house that day, so I came home around 7 p.m. When I got home, I heard some shouting. My husband and Caitlin were arguing. I didn't understand what was going on, but I rushed to stop the two of them. Hey, what's wrong with you two?
I don't care about Dad anymore.
What an attitude you have towards your father. Caitlin went straight to her room. Caitlin! I immediately questioned my husband. What the hell is going on? You've never raised your voice like that before. And Caitlin never talked back like that either. It's nothing, he replies, awkwardly averting his eyes. It didn't look like nothing though. I'm your wife and her mother. You have to tell me what happened. If this is about Caitlin's career, the three of us should talk. I said it's nothing. Stop trying to pry into it. He then started to walk away. Hey, where are you going? I'm going outside. I'm gonna go out and get some food too. Hey, wait! My husband left the house without listening to my words. I had no choice but to quickly cook dinner and called Caitlin from her room. At first she said she didn't want it, but when I told her Dad went out somewhere, so it's just the two of us, she came out of the room. What happened? I asked her as we ate, but she remained silent and wouldn't answer. You don't want to talk to Mom about it? I was a little sad. I had thought that my daughter and I had bonded in our own way. I wondered why she had such a fight with her father. I was curious, but neither my husband nor Caitlin wanted to talk about it. Ever since then,
Caitlin hardly speaks to her father or me anymore. I understand her distancing herself from her father because of their fight. But it makes me sad to see her distancing herself from me as well. I thought it was not a good thing for a parent-child relationship. So after a while, I decided to talk to my husband about it. About Caitlin, I don't think it's a good idea to keep things like this. Then my husband said something outrageous.
I don't give a shit about Caitlin anymore.
I couldn't believe it. What are you saying? She's your daughter.
It was her fault. It was her fault then, and it's her fault now. She obviously doesn't want anything to do with me.
That's something you're gonna have to work on.
Why should I care about my daughter?
Nathan, I was out of words. It's no wonder they fought. Their father and daughter. Even family have their disputes. Even so, it's part of keeping up family to make up with each other. And yet, my husband, with all his stupid stubbornness, did not try to talk to his daughter. If you keep on being like that, Caitlin wouldn't want to talk to you.
What? You're saying it's my fault?
Yes, it's your fault that you won't talk. Come on, tell me what's going on. Why should I be the only one left out?
I started to cry. Shut up. This is between Caitlin and me.
My husband left the house again. Why won't anybody tell me about what happened? I was alone sitting on the living room floor, crying. Then I heard the door slam open.
Oh, Caitlin.
I'm sorry. I'll make you dinner right now. I wiped my tears and got up to head to the kitchen. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you were in so much pain. I'll tell you about the fight I had with Dad. She choked up as she began to speak. That day, I saw him. I happened to be riding my bike to a fast food restaurant after school with my friends. We were sitting at the table where we could see the sidewalk through the glass. Then I saw Dad. I saw him walking arm in arm with a woman I didn't know. So after I came home that day, I asked him about what was going on. And that's how we got into a fight. Oh, that's how it was. That was beyond my imagination. I'm sorry about not talking to you. I didn't know what to do. I hugged her tightly. I'm sorry you had to suffer on your own. It must have been hard for you to know all that by yourself. My daughter cried aloud when I said that. I couldn't stop crying either. So we both sobbed for a while. After we calmed down, we talked. I don't think I can stay married to your father anymore. But I want to spend time with you. What about you, Caitlin? I want to live with you. I don't want to live with the kind of man who destroys his family to go to another woman. I was happy that she chose me, and I made up my mind that I would take care of her for the rest of my life. Then I'll have to find a job and find a place to move first. I immediately took action. I applied for a good-paying office job. To my surprise, I got the job first try. Although there was a blank in my resume, my work history and qualifications were suitable for the job, and I started working right away. My husband had been talking less and less since our fight. He started leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night. So he doesn't even know I'm working. My daughter and I became closer than ever. We would go to viewings for possible places to live on the weekends. We would have lunch and go shopping on the way home. We enjoyed our mother-daughter dates. And then we found a place to move in. My daughter's high school entrance exam was also successfully done, and I could finally say goodbye to my husband. Just when I was thinking that, my husband started talking to me with an apologetic look.
I'm sorry. It's about Caitlin's graduation day. I can't go because I have to go on a business trip.
I see.
Well, if it's for work,
You can't do anything about it.
sorry.
The way he said it showed he thought it was bad at all. This made me slightly angry. But at the same time, I felt that I didn't really care about my husband anymore. Besides, I had already used the detective agency and obtained a lot of photos to prove the affair. In fact, I already know that my husband is not going on a business trip, but an affair trip. He thought he could hide it from me. I tried to look at his phone while he was taking a bath. I found that it was password protected, but the number was my husband's birthday, and I immediately opened it. So, from the messages from his affair partner, I got the information that my husband was going on an affair trip on his daughter's graduation day. For my daughter and I, my husband was no longer a family member, but rather a housemate. So, neither of us cared about his presence. Then, on a graduation day, we packed up and moved out. My husband was away for a couple of days, so I guess he'll find the divorce papers on the table the day after tomorrow. A few days later, sure enough, I got a phone call from my husband.
Hey, where's all your stuff? And what are you thinking? Leaving me these divorce papers?
Isn't it clear what it means? I can't stay married to you any longer, so I want a divorce.
I don't see any of Caitlin's stuff either. But is she with you?
Yes, she is. She said she can't live with you either. After the graduation ceremony is over, my daughter and I are graduating from you.
What? Why? Why so sudden?
Sudden? How can you say it's so sudden when you didn't even try to take care of your daughter? Or were you so caught up in your affair that you didn't even notice it?
What?
Caitlin told me. The fight that day was because Caitlin questioned you about the affair, and you fought back.
What? That's because the man Caitlin saw wasn't me, but she said it was so.
Unfortunately, I have evidence of infidelity taken by detectives. You can't get away with that, can you? Wow. I bet you had a fabulous, dreamy time on your trip. On your daughter's graduation day. So it's time to get back to reality. Of course I'm going to ask for alimony and child support. I'll even send a content-certified letter to your workplace.
I can't have that happen.
I don't care what you say. I don't know your affair partner's address, so the only way is to send it to your workplace. It's your fault for having an affair with a coworker.
Oh no. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. The devil struck. Please, forgive me.
When my husband, feeling the odds were against him, started pleading, my daughter took the phone from me. We will never forgive you. You betrayed Mom and me. You went to have an affair with the intention of destroying our family, didn't you? Then take responsibility and give in. Life is not easy. Life is not easy that you can just take the good parts of it. With that, my daughter hung up. The phone rang shortly thereafter, but I ignored it and blocked the number. I didn't expect a 14-year-old say a line like that. Kids grow up before you know it. I then, through my lawyer, demanded a divorce. Of course, I demanded alimony and child support. My husband was reluctant to the last minute, but he said he didn't want to go to court, so the divorce was finalized. He paid alimony and child support in one lump sum. I also demanded alimony from his affair partner and got them to pay that too. Through the letter I sent to my now ex-husband and his affair partner's workplace, their co-workers found out about their affair. He took a pay cut and was transferred to a regional office. In addition to having to pay alimony for the affair, he had a difficult time at work, so he eventually resigned voluntarily. Well, he and his partner got what they deserved. Meanwhile, I'm living comfortably with my daughter in our new apartment. It's close to her high school, so she often brings her friends over and enjoys playing with them. Even though we're not blood related, we have a deep mother-daughter bond. We will continue to support each other and live happily.